Have you ever felt the ground vanish beneath your feet? Have you experienced forces so overwhelming they made the weight of the world feel like it was crushing you? This isn't just a fleeting emotion, my friend. It's a battle. A relentless, often silent war waged within the deepest recesses of our soul, where doubts whisper, fears roar, and the path forward seems utterly swallowed by shadow. Perhaps it's a career path that suddenly crumbled, leaving you questioning your purpose and worth. Maybe it's a relationship that fractured beyond repair, leaving behind a hollow ache that echoes in every quiet moment. Or perhaps, and this is often the most insidious, it's an internal struggle, a spiritual dryness, an unexplained anxiety, a persistent feeling of being adrift, detached, even abandoned. These moments, these deep valleys of life, they test our very foundation, don't they? They make us wonder if there's an anchor strong enough to hold us, a light powerful enough to pierce such profound darkness. We've all been there, standing at the precipice of our own capacity, looking out into an abyss that seems to swallow every ounce of hope. It's in these exact moments, when our human strength inevitably fails, when our carefully laid plans dissolve into dust, that something deeper within us stirs. It's a primal instinct, an ancient recognition that there must be something, someone, beyond our finite selves capable of intervening. It's a yearning for a cosmic intervention, a divine rescue that defies all logic and natural law. But how often do we truly believe such a thing is possible? How often do we dare to hope that the very fabric of the universe might shift, might respond to our desperate plea? Nestled within ancient texts, precisely within the pages of the Psalms, lies a powerful testament that doesn't just describe this agony, it utterly transforms it. This isn't merely a poetic expression of human suffering or a simple prayer for solace. No, Psalm 18 is something far more profound. It is a raw, visceral, almost cinematic account of divine intervention, a visible, tangible rescue that cuts through the despair with breathtaking force. It paints a picture of God not as a distant observer, but as an active participant, a mighty warrior who descends from the heavens, bending the very elements to his will, all for the sake of his child in distress. Think about that for a moment. Imagine the sky parting, the earth trembling, fire and smoke pouring forth, not as a metaphor for an abstract feeling, but as a depiction of a real, powerful, world-altering response to a human cry. This psalm isn't just words on a page. It's an explosion of divine power on behalf of someone at their absolute limit. What if I told you that, at the peak of your deepest desperation, when every human avenue seems blocked and every natural resource exhausted, the very heavens themselves can and do bend in your favor? What if this ancient narrative holds the key to understanding a living, breathing reality where your deepest struggles are met with the most spectacular display of divine might? Are you truly ready to witness that truth unfold in a way that redefines your understanding of God's power and His intimate care for you? This isn't just another video offering comfort or a fleeting spiritual thought. This is an invitation to step into an epic narrative, to journey through a text that promises not just survival, but absolute triumph. We are going to experience Psalm 18 not as a dusty relic, but as a vibrant, living testament, a journey from utter chaos to triumphant celebration. We'll peel back the layers of this incredible psalm, dissecting its powerful imagery and profound truths, uncovering precisely how David, a man like us, found unshakable strength when all hope seemed obliterated, when enemies surrounded him, when the very foundations of his world were shaking. And more importantly, we will discover how you, right here, right now, can access and activate that same power. This isn't just history. This is your potential future written in the stars and etched in the heart of God. Prepare yourself, because your perspective on struggle, on prayer, and on the overwhelming power of the divine is about to be radically transformed. We just spoke about the ground vanishing beneath your feet, about the sheer weight of the world, about the cosmic call for intervention. Now let's get intensely personal with a document, a logbook of the soul at its very limit, penned by a man who knew these depths intimately. This is where Psalm 18 truly begins to resonate, not just as ancient scripture, but as a mirror reflecting our own most profound struggles. David, the very same warrior king, the man after God's own heart, starts this magnificent psalm by laying bare his soul in utter distress. He speaks of cords of death encircling him, of torrents of iniquity overwhelming him. He describes cords of Sheol entangling him, and snares of death confronting him. These aren't just poetic flourishes. They are raw, unfiltered cries from a man who felt utterly trapped, completely suffocated by the circumstances pressing in on him from every side. Think about those phrases for a moment. Cords of death. What are the cords of death in your life today? Maybe it's not a physical threat, but a relentless financial burden that feels like a noose tightening around your dreams, slowly choking out your hope for the future. Perhaps it's a toxic relationship, a bond that once promised life and now feels like a snare, entangling you in endless cycles of pain and disappointment, draining your spirit day by day. Could it be the relentless grip of anxiety or depression, a mental fog that feels like an inescapable prison, isolating you from joy and peace? These are the modern cords of death, just as real, just as suffocating, as anything David faced on ancient battlefields, and torrents of iniquity. This isn't just about sin in a theological sense. It's about the overwhelming flood of injustice, the waves of adversity that crash against your life, threatening to pull you under. It could be the unfairness at work, the betrayal from a trusted friend, the systemic challenges that seem insurmountable, the relentless bad news that inundates our lives, making us feel small and powerless against a chaotic world. These are the deluges that leave us gasping for air, questioning if we can ever resurface. It's human, profoundly human, to feel this way. David, the hero of faith, the mighty king, felt this exact despair. He wasn't immune to the crushing weight of life's battles. He wasn't some stoic, emotionless figure impervious to fear or suffering. Quite the opposite. He poured out his fear, his anguish, his sense of being utterly cornered. And it was from this very place of profound human fragility, from the depths of despair, with these cords tightening and these torrents raging, that he did something truly impossible, something that changed the entire trajectory of his predicament. He didn't just despair. He cried out. He didn't retreat into silence. He raised his voice. He didn't surrender to the forces. He called upon a force greater than any other. His cry wasn't a whisper of resignation. It was a shout of desperate hope directed at the only one capable of hearing and responding. He declared, "In my distress I called upon the Lord, to my God I cried for help. From his temple he heard my voice, and my cry came to his ears." This wasn't a casual prayer. It was a primal scream from the heart of a person at their absolute limit. It was a recognition that no human effort, no personal strength, no amount of strategizing could prevail against the overwhelming odds he faced. It was the ultimate surrender of control to the ultimate source of power. Do you see the connection? You are not alone in this valley, my friend. Your struggles, your fears, your moments of feeling utterly overwhelmed, they are understood. They are valid. And just as David, in his deepest distress, dared to believe that there was a God who could hear him, who would descend into his battle, so too can you. The good news, the truly revolutionary news, is that Psalm 18 doesn't end with David trapped, entangled, or drowned. This is just the beginning of the most spectacular rescue. We just left David crying out from the depths, entangled by cords of death and overwhelmed by torrents of iniquity. His was not a polite request, but a desperate, guttural scream for rescue, an unadulterated cry from the heart of someone who truly understood the meaning of no other help. And now, my friend, we arrive at the very heart, the absolute epicenter, of Psalm 18's breathtaking narrative. This is where the universe itself seems to hold its breath, where the laws of nature bend, and the very fabric of reality is torn open in response to a single, heartfelt human plea. This is not just a story. It is an epic display of divine power, so magnificent, so terrifyingly beautiful, that it forever redefines what we can expect from a God who hears our cries. Imagine with me, if you will, the scene that unfolds next, described in verses 7 through 19. The earth begins to tremble, a deep, resonant groan echoing from its very core. Mountains shake to their foundations, not from a simple tremor, but because he is angry, because his passion is stirred for his beloved child. Smoke billows from his nostrils, a terrifying yet majestic vapor signaling his approach, while devouring fire leaps from his mouth, consuming everything in its path, reducing obstacles to ash. Coals blaze forth, radiating an intense heat that melts away all resistance. This isn't a gentle whisper of comfort from afar. This is the full, unbridled, cosmic fury of the Almighty unleashed. And then, the heavens themselves bow low. He descends, mounted on a cherub, riding swiftly upon the wings of the wind. He makes darkness his hiding place, his canopy around him, thick clouds pregnant with water. Can you picture it? The very sky darkens, not with despair, but with the ominous grandeur of his arrival. The clouds, heavy and dark, are not just rain clouds. They are the chariot, the very war cloak of the God of all creation. From the brilliant light before him burst forth hailstones and coals of fire, a celestial bombardment against the forces arrayed against his child. The Lord thunders from heaven, the Most High utters his voice, sending forth lightning in great flashes, utterly discomfiting his enemies, scattering them in every direction, throwing them into confusion with his mighty bolts. He sends forth his arrows and scatters them. He shoots out lightnings and routs them. The very channels of the sea are exposed, the foundations of the world laid bare at his rebuke, at the blast of the breath of his nostrils. This, my friend, is not just vivid ancient poetry. This is the divine choreography, how God descends onto your personal battlefield. We may not witness literal earthquakes or see actual fire and smoke pouring from the heavens in our daily lives, no, but interpret these images not as literal events today, but as the intensity, the magnitude, the sheer overwhelming force of God's response to your earnest prayer. When you cry out, you are not sending a polite suggestion into the void. You are triggering a cosmic response, a divine intervention so powerful that it reorders circumstances, dismantles strongholds, and brings an overwhelming presence that cannot be ignored. Think about it. What does it mean for the very foundations of the world to be laid bare at his rebuke? It means that no problem is too entrenched, no obstacle too insurmountable, no enemy too powerful when the God of the universe decides to act on your behalf. That deep-seated anxiety that feels like it's part of your very being. He uncovers its roots. That toxic situation that seems fixed and unchangeable, he exposes its weaknesses. That overwhelming burden that hides your light, he brings his brilliant light to bear upon it, revealing paths you never knew existed. This section of Psalm 18 is a profound declaration that God is not a passive observer. He is a warrior. He is a protector. He is the God of battle. He doesn't merely send a message or a gentle reminder of his presence. He descends. With all the power, the majesty, the absolute glory of the universe, he steps into your war. He takes your side. He engages. He fights for you with a ferocity that obliterates every opposing force. Have you ever truly stopped to consider how grand, how absolute, how terrifyingly magnificent God's response to your cry truly is? He doesn't just respond. He makes an entrance that shakes the very foundations of everything that stands against you. This is the magnitude of his love, the depth of his commitment to those who call upon his name. Your cry, however faint, however desperate, triggers the descent of the God of battle himself. What could possibly stand against that? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. We just witnessed the earth-shattering, heaven-bending cosmic response to a human cry. The God of battle descended with an overwhelming display of power, dismantling everything that stood against David. Now, as the dust settles from that magnificent intervention, we encounter a passage in Psalm 18 that often causes us to pause, to scratch our heads, and perhaps even to feel a little uncomfortable. David, in verses 20 through 27, begins to speak of his own righteousness, his own integrity. He says things like, "The Lord rewarded me according to my righteousness. According to the cleanness of my hands, he recompensed me." He even proclaims, With the blameless you show yourself blameless, with the pure you show yourself pure. For many, this sounds like a boast, a claim of perfection, almost as if David is saying, God rescued me because I deserved it. And in our own human frailty, in our acute awareness of our own shortcomings and failures, this can feel like a stumbling block. We think, but I am not righteous. My hands are not clean. How could God respond to me with such power if he requires perfection? And this, my dear friend, brings us to the paradox of Psalm 18, human righteousness and the outstretched hand of God. This is not about David claiming a sinless life, nor is it about a transactional relationship with the divine where God only acts if we've earned his favor. Such an interpretation would completely miss the profound beauty and revolutionary grace embedded within these very words. Instead, we must look deeper, beyond a superficial reading, to understand what kind of righteousness God truly values and how that connects to his magnificent response. Think of it this way. David's righteousness here is not an absence of fault, but a sincerity of heart, a genuine pursuit of God's ways even amidst his many human imperfections. It's the intention, the trajectory of his life, the fundamental desire to walk in alignment with God's will, despite the inevitable stumbles and falls. He wasn't perfect, we know his story, filled with very human flaws and profound mistakes. But his heart was continually turned towards God. He sought God's presence, he repented when he failed, and he longed to live a life that honored his Creator. This is the cleanness of hands and the blamelessness he speaks of, not a flawless record, but an authentic, repentant, and continually striving spirit. God sees the heart. He is not fooled by outward appearances or by a performance of piety. He sees the genuine yearning, the earnest effort, the persistent return to him even after wandering. When David says God showed himself blameless to the blameless and pure to the pure, it means God mirrors the sincerity of our devotion. He responds in kind to the authenticity of our seeking. If our hearts are truly set on him, even imperfectly, he aligns himself with that aspiration. He meets us where we are, not waiting until we are polished and perfect, but embracing the spirit that yearns for him. But the psalm also offers a stark contrast, an astonishing insight into God's character. With the crooked you show yourself astute. This phrase is often translated as shrewd or cunning, but in this context it speaks to God's unparalleled wisdom and strategic brilliance. For those who deliberately choose a path of deceit, of manipulating and twisting truth, God does not passively accept it. He outwits the deceiver. He unravels the schemes of the perverse. He turns the tables on those who operate with malice and hidden agendas. This is a God who responds to the essence of our hearts, with grace for the sincere, with justice and divine wisdom for those who persist in devious ways. So the profound connection here is this. It's not about being flawless, my friend. It's about having a heart that, despite its inevitable human failings and painful falls, consistently strives to turn towards God. It's about acknowledging our need for him, owning our mistakes, and desiring to walk in his light. That, my dear brother or sister, is the righteousness that moves the heart of God. That is the sincerity that draws his gaze, that compels his powerful intervention. His outstretched hand of grace meets your sincere heart, not your perfect performance. He sees the yearning, he sees the turning, and it is in that genuine connection that his magnificent power is unleashed. We are not saved by merit, but by a sincere heart open to his unending grace. This is the beautiful, liberating paradox that David understood, and it's a truth that can set your spirit free. We've journeyed with David through the depths of his despair, witnessed the awe-inspiring cosmic descent of the God of battle in response to his sincere cry, and explored the profound paradox of integrity and grace. The earth trembled, the heavens bowed, and the very foundations of the world were laid bare as God fought on David's behalf. But what happens after the rescue? Does the story simply end with survival, with being pulled out of the fire? Or is there something more profound, something transformative, that God intends for those he delivers? This, my friend, is where Psalm 18 takes a turn from mere liberation to radical empowerment. This is where we uncover the truth that God doesn't just save us from a situation, he saves us for a purpose, transforming the survivor into a genuine conqueror. This is the essence of Beyond Rescue. God transforms the survivor into a conqueror. Look closely at the verses that follow, from verse 28 through 45. Here, David no longer speaks of being engulfed or entangled, but of being actively equipped, strengthened, and made formidable by the very hand that saved him. He declares, "For you light my lamp. The Lord my God illumines my darkness. For by you I can run upon a troop, and by my God I can leap over a wall." Consider these images. To run upon a troop suggests not just resistance but aggressive forward movement, a confident charge against overwhelming numbers. To leap over a wall implies transcending barriers that once seemed insurmountable, overcoming limitations that previously confined and defeated him. This is not the language of mere escape. It is the language of offensive victory, of proactive triumph. Think about your own life, my friend. We've all faced those moments where the wall seemed too high, the enemy troop too numerous, the darkness too dense. Maybe it's a persistent habit you can't break, a fear that paralyzes you, a career ceiling you feel you can't shatter, or a spiritual plateau that leaves you feeling stagnant. When God steps into your battlefield, He doesn't just clear the path. He fundamentally changes you. He equips you with a strength that isn't your own, a resilience you didn't know you possessed. He makes your feet like the feet of a deer, enabling you to tread securely on high places, to navigate treacherous terrain with agility and confidence. This speaks of spiritual agility, of moving gracefully and effectively through life's dangerous peaks and valleys, finding footing where others stumble. It's about developing an inner stability that allows you to stand firm, even when the world around you is shaking. He trains your hands for battle so that my arms can bend a bow of bronze. Imagine the immense strength required to bend a bow made of bronze. This is a hyperbolic image, yes, but it powerfully conveys the supernatural enablement God provides. Your past weaknesses, those areas where you felt utterly defenseless, those are the very places where God imparts superhuman strength. Perhaps you once felt speechless in moments of conflict, but now you find clarity and courage to speak truth with grace. Maybe you once crumbled under pressure, but now you stand firm with an unyielding peace. God doesn't just heal the wound. He fortifies the limb. He doesn't just mend the broken spirit. He empowers it with a divine fortitude. He transforms your vulnerabilities into formidable strengths. David goes on to recount how God gives him his shield of salvation, supports him, and makes him great. He gives him a broad place for his steps and keeps his feet from slipping. This is the strategic insight. God doesn't just rescue you from danger, He positions you for future victory. He provides the wisdom, the discernment, the spiritual armor needed for what comes next. It's about more than just surviving the present storm. It's about being prepared, equipped, and empowered for every future challenge. This is where the strategist in me sees God not just as a rescuer, but as the ultimate trainer, the divine coach, who prepares His champions for greater works. Your story, my friend, does not end with liberation from your present struggles. It becomes a living, breathing testament of strength, a beacon of hope for others. God doesn't simply pull you out of the battle. He transforms you in the battle, and then He trains you for the next one. He takes your weaknesses, your past failures, your deepest fears, and in a divine alchemy, He transforms them into spiritual superpowers. The very experiences that almost broke you become the source of your greatest strength and deepest empathy. You emerge not just unharmed, but refined, sharpened, and incredibly powerful, ready to face new challenges not with dread, but with the confidence of a seasoned warrior who knows the God of battle fights alongside them. This empowerment isn't for your sole benefit. It's so you can stand with your head lifted high above your enemies, not in pride, but as a living monument to God's faithfulness and transforming power. You are not just a survivor, you are destined to be a conqueror. We've journeyed with David through the darkest valleys, witnessed the earth-shattering arrival of the God of battle, and stood in awe as He transformed a desperate cry into empowered victory. We saw how God not only rescued David from his enemies, but also equipped him, making him a formidable force, a conqueror forged in the fires of divine intervention. His personal testimony, his epic account of rescue, culminates not in a sigh of relief, but in a thunderous declaration of praise and a prophetic vision that stretches far beyond his own lifetime. touching every generation, including yours and mine. This is where Psalm 18 transcends a personal autobiography and becomes a foundational prophecy, a timeless principle, pointing to something far greater than David himself. This is the profound truth of Psalm 18, from David's personal experience to the universal promise of the Messiah. After recounting God's magnificent deliverance and his own subsequent empowerment, David doesn't simply close the book on his story. No, he lifts his voice in verses 46 through 50, proclaiming, "The Lord lives, and blessed be my rock, and exalted be the God of my salvation." This isn't just a statement of fact. It's a vibrant, living affirmation of God's active presence, his unending power, and his unwavering faithfulness. He is not a relic of the past, but the ever-present, ever-active God. David's experience of salvation was so real, so visceral, that it ignited within him an unquenchable fire of worship and an expansive vision of God's ultimate plan. But then, something remarkable happens. David's gaze, previously fixed on his own triumphs and the defeat of his personal enemies, begins to widen. He declares, "Therefore I will give thanks to you among the nations, O Lord, and I will sing praises to your name." Why among the nations? David was king of Israel, a specific people chosen by God. His wars were for his people against their adversaries. Yet, in this moment of profound gratitude and insight, he sees beyond the borders of Israel. He recognizes that the God who intervened so powerfully on his behalf is not just the God of Israel, but the God of all nations, and that his salvation is destined to be known and celebrated by every tribe and tongue. This isn't merely David thanking God in public. It's a prophetic utterance, a foretelling of a future where God's fame, made manifest through his acts of salvation, would reach every corner of the earth. And this, my friend, is where the spiritual depths of Psalm 18 truly open up to embrace us, offering a perspective rooted in the timeless principles of the Psalms and fulfilled in the Christian spiritual journey. When David speaks of God showing loving kindness to his anointed, to David and his offspring forever, he is speaking not just of his immediate descendants, but of a specific unbroken line, a covenant promise that points directly to the ultimate anointed one, the Messiah. For centuries, the Jewish people awaited this anointed one, a descendant of David who would reign eternally, bringing ultimate salvation and peace. And for us as followers of Christ, we understand that this promise, this legacy, finds its glorious fulfillment in Jesus Christ. Jesus is the ultimate offspring of David, the one through whom God's loving kindness is extended not just to a single nation, but to all who believe, offering a salvation that is eternal and universal. Think about it. David experienced God's personal deliverance from physical enemies and life-threatening situations. But Jesus, the Christ, came to deliver us from an enemy far more insidious, sin and spiritual death. He came to break the cords of eternal separation, to leap over the walls of our rebellion, to bring light into the darkest spiritual night. He is the ultimate rock, the true fortress the Savior David yearned for, and the deliverer for whom all of humanity silently groans. So when we read Psalm 18, we are not just looking back at David's epic rescue. We are looking forward to the greater, more profound rescue accomplished by Jesus. David's experience becomes a shadow, a prototype, of the full and complete salvation offered through Christ. The God who sends forth his arrows and thunders from heaven for David is the same God who sent his Son, the ultimate expression of his power and love, to defeat the spiritual enemies that threaten us all. This means that the promise of deliverance, the empowerment of the victor, the profound hope that permeates Psalm 18, is not limited to a historical figure. It is a living, active promise for you today. It means that the same God who heard David's desperate cry and descended with cosmic power is the same God who hears your prayers, who steps into your personal battles, and who, through Christ, has secured your ultimate victory. This legacy, this promise of the Messiah, extends his grace and power to every person in every generation who dares to call upon his name. It transforms a historical account into an eternal truth, confirming that God's plan of salvation is grander, wider, and more inclusive than we could ever imagine. It assures us that our struggles are not in vain, for they are part of a larger, divinely orchestrated narrative of rescue and redemption that culminates in the ultimate triumph of God's love. We've seen David, rescued, refined, and radically empowered, transformed from a survivor into a conqueror. He now stands tall, having faced the very depths of despair and witnessed the earth-shattering power of God descend on his behalf. The battle has been won, the enemy scattered, and he, the king, is made mighty through God's strength. But is this where the story ends? Is this magnificent song, this epic recounting of divine intervention, merely a personal journal of one man's triumphs? If it were, it would still be inspiring, yes, but its true, eternal weight, its profound resonance for you and me today, would be diminished. Here, my friend, Psalm 18 ascends to an even higher plane, transcending David's individual experience to become a universal declaration, a prophetic anthem that echoes through the ages, culminating in a promise for all generations. This is Psalm 18, from David's personal experience to the universal promise of the Messiah. As David concludes his song in verses 46 through 50, his praise expands beyond his immediate deliverance. He doesn't just thank God for his rescue, he proclaims something far grander. He cries out, "The Lord lives, and blessed be my rock, and exalted be the God of my salvation." He recognizes that the God who saved him is not a temporary force, not a fleeting intervention, but an ever-living, ever-present reality. This living God, his rock, is not merely a personal refuge, but a steadfast foundation for all who seek him. This realization lifts his gaze from his past struggles to an eternal truth. It's an acknowledgement that the power he experienced is rooted in God's unchanging nature, ensuring that such deliverances are not anomalies, but expressions of a consistent, unwavering, divine character. Then comes the profound shift, the pivot point that makes this psalm resonate with such powerful prophetic weight. David declares, "Great salvation he brings to his king and shows loving kindness to his anointed, to David and to his descendants forever." Here the word anointed is crucial, for in Hebrew it is Messiah. David, in his own personal victory, sees a glimpse of a larger, grander narrative, a divine plan that extends far beyond his own lifetime, beyond his own lineage. He understands that his kingship, his deliverance, his very existence, are part of a divinely ordained succession, a promise of an ultimate king, an ultimate deliverer, a true Messiah who would bring salvation not just to a single individual or a nation, but to all peoples, to all generations, forever. This is a promise whispered through David's experience, a promise that finds its ultimate, glorious fulfillment in Jesus Christ. Jesus, the descendant of David, is the anointed one, the Messiah, the one through whom God truly brings great salvation and loving kindness forever. David's physical enemies, his personal battles, foreshadowed the spiritual warfare that humanity faces, and the ultimate victory won by Christ on the cross. David's rescue from physical death and oppression points us toward the eternal salvation from sin and spiritual death that Jesus offers. When David spoke of God making him head of the nations, a king over peoples he had not known, he was echoing a divine decree that would truly find its ultimate and global realization in the reign of Christ, whose kingdom knows no earthly bounds. Think about the implications of this, my friend. Your own struggles, your own victories, your own cries for rescue, they are not isolated incidents. They are part of this grand, eternal narrative. When you experience God's intervention, when you find strength you didn't know you had, when a wall is leaped over by divine power, you are tasting a fragment of that universal promise, that eternal song of deliverance sung by David and fulfilled in Christ. This psalm is a powerful reminder that the same God who fiercely fought for David, who dramatically intervened in his life, is the same God who orchestrates history, who guides nations, and who has established an eternal covenant of grace through his anointed one. This psalm therefore becomes more than just an ancient text. It transforms into a living testament to God's faithfulness across millennia. It assures us that the promises made to David, culminating in the person of Jesus, are secure, unwavering, and eternally relevant. It means that the hope we place in God, the cries we utter in our distress, are not in vain, but are heard by the very same God who orchestrates cosmic interventions and establishes eternal legacies. It's a powerful reminder that our personal spiritual journey is woven into a larger tapestry of redemption, a story that began with a king's cry and culminates in the universal reign of the Messiah. It's an eternal song, passed down from generation to generation, whispering the truth that our God lives and He saves not just for a moment, but forever. We have journeyed together through the heart of Psalm 18, an epic narrative that began in the crushing depths of despair and culminates in a thunderous declaration of victory and an eternal promise. We saw David, a man at his absolute limit, engulfed by the cords of death, overwhelmed by the torrents of iniquity, doing the only thing left to do. He cried out. His wasn't a timid whisper, but a desperate primal clamor that pierced the very heavens. And in response, we witnessed the awe-inspiring, earth-shattering cosmic descent of the God of battle, with smoke from His nostrils, fire from His mouth, and the very sky bowing low. He came, not as a gentle breeze, but as a mighty warrior, intervening with a power that bent the elements to His will. This wasn't merely a historical event. It was a profound illustration of the intensity and magnitude with which God responds to your genuine, heartfelt cry today. This divine intervention led to an unparalleled rescue, a liberation from the very forces that sought to destroy him. But God didn't stop there. He didn't just pull David from the fire, He transformed him in the fire. He didn't just save him from his enemies. He equipped him for future battles, bestowing upon him supernatural strength, making his feet like the feet of a deer, training his arms to bend a bow of bronze. This was a radical empowerment, turning a survivor into a formidable conqueror, strategically positioning him for triumph. We saw how God doesn't just deliver you from your present struggles. He fortifies your spirit, hones your skills, and prepares you to face whatever comes next, transforming your weaknesses into spiritual superpowers. And finally, we observed how David's personal triumph expanded into a timeless legacy and promise, extending far beyond his own lifetime. His song became a prophetic anthem, echoing through generations, pointing directly to the ultimate anointed one, the Messiah. This universal promise, fulfilled in Jesus Christ, assures us that the same God who fought for David is fighting for you, and that the ultimate victory over sin and death has already been secured. The hope that resonated in David's heart, the power that flowed into his life, is a living, active reality made available to every single person who embraces this eternal truth. This entire psalm reminds us that our God lives, that He is powerfully involved, and that His ultimate plan is one of salvation and triumph for all who call upon His name. So now I want you to pause and ask yourself a deeply personal question. What is the Psalm 18 of your life right now? Where are the cords that bind you? What are the torrents that threaten to overwhelm you? What are the walls that seem too high to leap over, the battles that feel too daunting to fight? Where do you need that cosmic descent, that earth-shaking intervention from the God of battle? Perhaps it's in a crushing financial burden that feels like a noose, or a debilitating health challenge that steals your peace, or a broken relationship that leaves you hollow. Maybe it's a relentless struggle with anxiety or doubt, a spiritual dryness that has left you feeling disconnected and weary. Don't shy away from these realities. Instead, I urge you, let this psalm be the catalyst for your own authentic cry. Let it be the blueprint for your expectation of a God who not only hears but actively responds, who not only rescues but powerfully empowers. Allow this ancient song to become your personal declaration of faith, your defiant stand against despair, and your confident hymn of victory. Permit yourself to believe that no abyss is too deep for the hand of God to reach, no enemy too strong for Him to defeat, no situation too dire for His miraculous intervention. The God who responded to David's desperate cry is waiting to respond to yours. He is ready to step into your war, to fight on your behalf, and to transform your struggle into a profound testimony of His goodness and power. He desires to turn your rubble into a strategic victory, making you a beacon of His grace and strength. This is not just religious rhetoric. This is an invitation to a transformed life, a life lived in the powerful reality of His constant presence and unwavering support. If this message has resonated with your spirit, if something within you has stirred with recognition and hope, then please, let us know. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Tell us which part of Psalm 18 or which aspect of this message has touched you most deeply. Your story, your reflections can be a powerful source of encouragement for someone else who is also navigating their own challenges. We are building a community here, a family of faith, and your voice matters. It helps us all grow, and it reminds us that we are never alone in our journey. If you desire more content that inspires, challenges, and transforms your spiritual walk, then I wholeheartedly encourage you to subscribe to this channel. And do not forget to activate that little notification bell so you won't miss out on any future messages of hope and truth. More importantly, if you know someone who is currently facing their own overwhelming battles, someone who needs a powerful reminder of God's intervention, someone who needs to hear that they are not just survivors but destined to be conquerors, then please share this video with them. Let's extend this message of faith, strength, and divine empowerment far and wide, touching hearts and igniting hope wherever it is needed. May the Lord, who is your rock and your Redeemer, be glorified in your life. May His powerful presence surround you, His mighty hand uplift you, and His unfailing love sustain you in every battle. May you know deep in your soul that He lives and He fights for you. Amen.